Welcome, my friends, to Next Level Change Success, a change conversation for leaders, project and change practitioners for today and tomorrow. My name is Therese Perez of myvirtualchangemanager.com, and I'm an experienced change and project professional and people leader with many years of experience in the industry. I love business, and I love the people side of business especially. So nothing lights me up more than seeing people use change management, project management, and strong change leadership to engage, motivate, and inspire people, and ultimately transform organisations. If you've heard about change management and have no idea of what it involves, then you're in the right place. If you know about change management, but you want to take your practices to the next level, then this is where you should be. I'm going to share the stories of my experiences, interview some fantastic people, and I'm going to explore all of the challenges and opportunities that you face in organisations right now. So please join me and let's go and have some fun. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Next Level Change Success. My name's Therese Perez and I'm the founder of myvirtualchangemanager.com. I'd like to acknowledge that I am recording on Tharawal country and pay my respects to the traditional owners and custodians on the land on which I am recording. Today, let's talk about the best questions for change. And I always talk about this concept of ask. Asking questions is always better and will always be a better strategy to find out about things, to challenge your own assumptions about things. So asking is always a better approach when it comes to inquiring and assessing about how your change is going, rather than just jumping into assumptions. Whether you're a sponsor, whether you're a project person, whether you're a change person, you need to ask the question rather than have challenging statements that you might have assumptions which are incorrect around. Because it becomes quite frustrating from a team perspective if you're making statements and then you're saying, well, you're assuming that this has happened, or you've heard this and you've assumed that to be the truth. So always good to ask questions rather than challenging statements. So I'm going to cover off some of the best questions that you can ask to explore how effective the change is going on your project or program. The first question is one I love to use anyway when it comes to business in general, because when looking at our human propensity to find solutions, so we always want to jump straight to the solution. And look, even in relationship, my other half will say how annoying it is that sometimes they'll be expressing how they feel and I will be trying to provide a solution. They'll be saying, I just want you to listen, not provide the solution. So it's not something that we comfortably do all the time if we're in a very right-brained fashion of wanting to always find solutions for people. But the first question to ask is, what problem are we trying to solve? And it is definitely a good question if everyone's talking about solutions and then after a while you start to think, I'm not sure what we're trying to achieve here. And sometimes when you can ask that question, if people can't articulate what the problem statement is, so what they're trying to solve in the first place, you can go so far from the original problem with the solution that obviously the solution you're going to put into play is not going to be one that's going to fundamentally solve the problem. And sometimes some further root cause analysis on that problem is going to find that your solution probably wasn't fit for purpose anyway. So it is important, even from a change perspective, of being clear on what was the intent behind the program. What were we trying to solve? A, because it will give you your measurables. B, because it will also help inform the why. And then also because I talk about the change diamond of effectiveness, which includes design. And if your design isn't right, or if your design isn't trying to solve that core problem, then you will find that it's not going to stick when you go and implement the change. So important to ask that question, especially if you're in a planning stage of the change itself. The second question that personally I would ask if I was on a change program or wanting to assess what was going on would be, so who will need to do things differently as a result of this change? And then correlating that answer to the change impact assessment or to the groups that you're communicating with to make sure that you have got them covered. And even if you looked around the table on a project or program, sometimes there's underrepresentation of those groups who are impacted. Sometimes that can be very prevalent in projects or programs or a recurring theme. I would call out here the IT area. Oftentimes there are IT solutions going into place, but there's no business stakeholder at the table who can say, hang on a second, this is going to impact X, Y, Z. And then, of course, that systems change or that upgrade or whatever it may be is released, and it very much impacts the business. So being able to ask that question, who'll need to do something different as a result of this change? Are we clear on that? And then do we have representation of those people at the table to make sure that we're supporting them as much as possible is a good follow-up question. The third question I would ask is, if I asked the groups who are impacted, so you've just told me who's impacted, and if I went and asked them and said, do you know about this change? How comfortable are you with this change? Can you tell me what they'd say to me? That is a really good question, because there's a lot of assumptions in corporate environments or in work environments where people think, well, they've been sent an email, I've spoken to their leader, so I would assume that they're going to say to you, I know about the change. And the comfort question, well, most people probably aren't comfortable with change, full stop. But moving people along around just from awareness through to yes, and I feel supported, that's a good indicator about whether, as you're heading into your go live, whether your comms has hit the mark. And so asking that question if you're a stakeholder, or asking that question if you're a sponsor, or even really self-reflecting on that question if you're a change practitioner, is important to do before you're heading into go live. Now let's reframe that question a little bit around, if I asked the leaders of those areas, what would they say? Would they say that they're feeling comfortable? And of course, in corporate environments, sometimes people can raise issues closer to the go live because they haven't been included. They might have been missed in the impact assessment. They may not have been engaged by the sponsor themselves. And so once again, reflecting on that as a stakeholder, sponsor, or as a change practitioner is also key about the leadership. Are leaders engaged? Are they across it? Have they communicated? Do they know what's coming up? Do they understand the intricacies of what their team may need to stop to enable that change to happen, and what they're on the hook for around reinforcement, and also about how it's going to be measured, how they're going to receive feedback? All of these things are what leaders should be aware of heading into the go live. Then the next question, you could also then broaden that a little bit around, how comfortable would they be if I asked them to explain why we're doing this? Could they clearly explain that? The next real key question is, are we comfortable that they have enough support to go through this change? Now, when it comes to transformation, then this is quite key. Oftentimes, there's this concept which has really started to get legs of this whole, it'll be leader-led change. Well, do the leaders have enough support? Do they have enough capacity? Are we taking enough things from them? Or are we very clear about the priorities so they can deliver on this change? This really is backed up by the evidence around the criticality of leadership and active role modelling of the change, and just kind of lumping that expectation or that responsibility onto leaders without adequate support or adequate information really does set the program up for failure when it comes to trying to achieve especially transformational cultural outcomes. The next question is, are we ready? And that comes down to that concept of change readiness, which is almost a flow on from the other questions around, are they comfortable? Are they informed? Are leaders clear? Do they have the right support? And then has that support been realised pre-go live? And once again, that would be multifaceted and also getting feedback from those who are impacted. Post-go live, you're asking the question of, how do we go? What do we achieve? How do we hit our measures? And what's the feedback? Definitely post-go live, you would want to be asking those questions. And then as a wrap-up question, which I really like, is, so what did we learn? What would we have done differently? What will we do differently in the future? And what worked well? What didn't work so well? So the kind of the sum of questions, which forms itself into a review, a lessons learned session, to capture those so that everyone can self-reflect, a reflection session on what the benefits were, what had been realised, and what can be learned for future change and leveraged for future change. So that's just some key questions. So if you're in your change or program, regardless of your role, if you're a stakeholder of a program, you may want to try some of these questions, ask some of those questions. If you have concerns or you're a little bit curious around some of the areas in the change space, of course, you can then relate those back to the project side as well, especially when you're looking at stakeholders and membership around the table on projects or programs. It's a bit of an assurance, I guess, to ask these questions so you can assess the health of the change that you're working on or that you're part of. I hope you found these questions thought-provoking, that they support a sense of curiosity, which is what they're intended to do, not a sense of judgment. And it just helps you explore the health of your change or program. And if you would like more tools and tips, please come and visit us at myvirtualchangemanager.com. Come and read some of the blog articles and some of the free assessment tools we have on the site. And if you're finding Next Level Change Success as being helpful, handy, please do leave a review and do share it with family, friends, those who are in the industry. We are looking to change the conversation around change for it to be a comfortable conversation and one that can be empowering for you and your people. Have a good day, and just remember that change matters because your people matter.